So it seems that I'm doing this. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I have absolutely no idea how it looks. My internet here is an absolute disaster. So it could be that there's super delay. It could be that I'm jerking around like a robot. It could be a thousand things. But fingers crossed, it's working. I'm going to write in the chat thing. I don't think anyone's watching this. If I'm honest, I don't think anyone's watching it. So it's fine. I can say what I want. I can make really terrible comments about the Tory party, and no one will care. I mean, in the current state of the Tory party, I don't think anyone would care anyway. Unless you're North American, in which case you probably don't even know what the Tory party is. But let's be fair, they're assholes. I'm going to write in the chat. Go. 5 out of 200 characters. Hello. Don't know if that's working. I put it up there. I don't know if anyone's watching this. I'm going to put something else. Is there anyone there? I'm going to type. Don't expect there to be any. I'm just doing this as an experiment. I said I'd do it on the Patreon, and eventually, months later, I've managed to find out how to do it because thankfully the lovely Paul Grogan was there and at LyriaCon, which I'll come on to in a second, and he taught me how to do this. So hopefully I'm not hugely messing it up, you know, what can I say? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer. I put a request for Q&As on my BGG page, and I'm going to answer those questions. But also I'm just going to have a general chat about what's going on with me and all of that sort of gubbins. Well, the show, not me. You don't want to know what's going on with me, frankly. It's none of your business, either. So, okay, so I just recently got back from LyriaCon, which was absolutely astonishing. It really, truly the best convention I've been to. It was, which was, oh, that's very absolutely. Oh, it's working though, it seems. I just looked at the thing and it's working, it seems. Yeah, so I just got back from LyriaCon and it was the most astonishing gaming convention I've ever been to. It's held in Leiria in Portugal. Well, I don't quite know the place where it was, but it's by the sea anyway. And it's super dramatic. And it's in this hotel, which is very nice. And basically, you're there to play games. I go to Essen every year, and I love Essen. I think Essen's great fun. Essen is full of fireworks, and you know, all the new games are coming out. There's thousands of people, and the whole city sort of, well, the whole city, but certain areas of the city become kind of devoted to the whole thing. And you see a lot of people that you see on YouTube, and you meet a lot of designers, and the most wonderful thing about the board gaming world is the people you admire, you can kind of meet them just walking around because there's no stars really in board gaming. I think that will change if board gaming gets bigger, but I think it's a different thing. If you go to Hay on Wye, there's a literary festival in England called Hay on Wye, and I'm sure you could bump into Margaret Atwood and say hello. It's that sort of festival idea. Well, LyriaCon is kind of not like that. It's not a festival. It's not a place where people go to sell. It's a place where people go to game. And it's in this hotel complex, which is nice. And so everything's self-contained. You get up in the morning and you're a 3-minute walk from where the games are being played. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner is included in all of that, and the food's great and almost decadently plentiful, which means that you end up eating too much. I mean, I was waddling around by the end of it. I'm now currently covering myself in sackcloth and ashes because it was just so indulgent with alcohol and food, and I don't usually eat dessert, but I mean there was huge amounts of dessert, huge amounts of food. And so, but everyone is there to, everyone's there to game. And also what's really great about it is everyone is there. The people who organize it are there to help you have a good time. That's their single focus, which is absolutely wonderful. And yeah, you play prototypes, which I usually never do, but it's great. You get to play them with the designers. Vital Lacerda was there with On Mars. Tony Boydell was there with Attentional Shipping. There were lots of other ones. They've got an exhaustive game library, which almost everything you'd want to play, apart from No Thanks, which is an oversight. They should fix that. And yeah, just a wonderful weekend. And then I went to Lisbon for a couple of days afterwards, and Lisbon's this. It sort of feels to me like a kid has sort of tipped their building blocks on a hill, and that's what the city is. It's very tumble down, lots of little alleys. It's very easy to sort of explore and get lost in. And and I think the big thing is I live in Berlin, which is the north, which is cold, which is miserable, and winter really is a tyranny here. When you get to about the middle of February, you kind of start losing the will to live. It's just, oh God, can I just be relieved from this sort of endless grey sky? And you don't even have any dramatic weather here. It doesn't snow very much. It doesn't really get super cold, like sort of -1 or something. So it's very similar to Britain in that way. It's sort of grey and it's miserable and it's oppressive, and you trudge to work, and it gets broken up by Christmas, but Christmas is a nightmare anyway. And so the beauty of going there is you get to game, you get to meet a lot of people, and it does feel like a summer camp. A lot of people say this, that these gaming conventions feel like summer camps. And it feels like a summer camp. And also the sun is out. And it's a respite from just the tyranny of winter, And I would highly recommend it. And I played lots of games there. I played Wingspan, which is, the big thing, the big hype, you can't get it, and all that sort of stuff. And I was really impressed. We played with 5 players. I don't think it functions very well with 5 players. And I wouldn't play it with 5 players again. I think with 3 players, it would be absolutely amazing. It's that sort of Stonemaier Games thing. Stonemaier Games, Jamie Stegmaier's designs really utilize this, but I think Wingspan does too, is the super quick turn. So the turn sort of around the table, they jump around the table, and it's back to your go. Side is a big, complex, difficult game, but he breaks your turns down into just these little 30-second movements which keep you engaged. And I think that's a real sort of development in modern gaming. Because if you go back to sort of older games that have these little turn components, you do them all on your turn, which means your turn would take longer. I do this, I do this, and I do this. And the advantage of that, I suppose, is that you feel like you're comboing on your turn. But the disadvantage is you have to sit around and watch people do their turns a lot, which is dull, I think. And Wingspan, I think, with 3 people would really zip along. And I was really impressed. I mean, the game is so beguiling. The little eggs are amazing. The art is amazing. The little facts on the bottom of the cards are amazing. Everything about Wingspan is structured to give you a calming, relieving experience. And I like this idea that it's scientifically rigorous, and I like this idea that it's not about combat, it's not about commerce, it's not about, these essentially aggressive modes of the human experience, which so many games are. Commerce is aggressive. Even your multiplayer solitaire Euro games, where you're not actively attacking other players, they're still aggressive. You're still seeking to conquer. You're still seeking to amass. You're still seeking to collect, whether that's thematically or mechanically. But the thing about Wingspan is it feels like it's supposed to, I think. It feels environmental. It feels like it is trying to send out a message that's not aggressive, which is really nice. I mean, especially considering the way the world is at the moment, it's a respite. And I think, you know, gaming can offer that, and that's, you know, that's wonderful. So I played that, and now on the complete other end of the scale, when it comes to aggression, I played An Infamous Traffic by Cole Worley, which is the Hollandspieler game. And it's a game that looks like a war game. It's paper map, it's those laser cut chips. It has that particular font, which I don't know what it is, but it's that war game font. It looks, you know, it looks like a war game. But it's not that. It's a negotiation. It's a satirical negotiation game. Okay, so this is the basic premise, and I want to write a review about this game because I think it's a singular achievement artistically. It's seeking to be satirical, and it works flawlessly. And it says so much about the way the British conducted themselves in China in the 1840s and 50s, and it's, you know, despicable, and it evokes that by asking you to do despicable things. So essentially what you're doing is you're trying to open up, each player runs a company, and you're trying to open up trade routes for opium in China. And you can kind of only do this, each trade route, you can kind of only do it by connecting with the other players and asking them to help you. But it's not cooperative. Everyone is completely doing it out of selfish motivations. And it's a commerce game. But what makes it brilliant is that when it comes down to it, why you're doing it is not to make your business better. In fact, it's probably better if you drive your business into the ground. What you're trying to do is send money back to England, to your son, who is then going to go into society and gain prizes. Because you send your son, and the amount of money you spend puts them forward on a track so they're able to choose prizes first. And essentially what the game is saying is that the welfare of the people in the country in which you're operating is of no importance. The mineral wealth is of no importance. Your obligation to your job and your business is of no importance. All that matters is the abstract concept of renown, which is sort of very British, in the sense of class in Britain is not a financial consideration, really. Class is an inescapable dint of birth. And An Infamous Traffic does this brilliantly well. And like all works of satire, it's wicked. It's wickedly funny. It asks you as players to do despicable things. And I am absolutely enraptured by An Infamous Traffic. There isn't, I've not played a game that's as satirically rigorous as this before. And what's so wonderful is it looks like a war game, but it is so simple to play. And it doesn't take long, it takes about 90 minutes. And it's yeah. If you're in America, order this game today. I think you need a group of people who are up for it, but order it today. You won't regret it. It's absolutely fantastic. Now I'm looking at the screen here and I'm doing things, and I'm not sure what I'm doing. So give me a second. I'm going to close a window, and then here, and I'm going to hit a button, and it's probably. And I'm not sure what I'm doing. So give me a second. I'm going to close. Oh, there you go. There you go. And then I'm going to leave that here so I can see myself, and it'll be very distracting. And someone, I can't see how many people are watching. Though. Give me a second. I'm sure no one is. I'm sure nobody's watching. There's nobody here, although someone did get back to me on the chat. Let's pop that out, shall we? Pop that out. Let's see if that works. Does it work? Yeah, so that was Lyricon, basically. It was absolutely spectacular. I would recommend it to anyone. Obviously, it's easier if you're in Europe. It's easy, well, easier and cheaper. I guess when people say easy, what they mean is cheap. Yeah, it was spectacular, and I would recommend it to anybody. Copy something into that. Okay, so what else? Before I go on to answering questions, because I want this to feel like you got some value. You know, there's some actual time, because there's not loads of questions, but they're some good questions. Okay, so I got something through the post the other day, and this is very exciting. I got this, which is Die Taverne im Tiefen Tal, which is the new game from Wolfgang Warsch. And it is, I haven't played it, but I saw it on the BGG thing, and it looks really great. And I haven't played Quacks of Quedlinburg yet, but I love the mind, and I like Wolfgang Warsch. I like the cut of his jib. It seems to me that he's on an upward curve. And so Schmidt Spieler, who are in Berlin, sent me a copy of this game. I'm going to play it this week, and there's going to be a review of it soon. And it looks delightful. I'm big into oldie worldy pubs, and this looks like it's going to fire those cannons. So let's have a quick look, shall we? This is what you do on live streams, right? You get things out of boxes. So there's a rule book, look at that. And then there's another rule book. So this, you see, this game comes with modules. So you can up the difficulty, the gamery stuff. And this is the instructions for the modules. It's all in German, so I'm going to have to plow through the rule book in German, but I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm playing it on Tuesday. And then you've got these punchboard thingies, look. So you've got like tables. That's a table in a pub. And it's Dennis Lohausen art. He kind of reminds me of Clemens Franz, but a bit tidier. Clemens Franz sort of looks a bit more, this isn't a criticism, but a bit more sort of rough around the edges, where Dennis Lohausen, he's the guy who did Terra Mystica and all that, seems a bit more sort of neat and put together. And I like both of their art, but I think I lean a bit more towards Clemens Franz in that it's sort of a bit more, even though they both do it on computers, it feels a bit more sort of done by hand, you know. And Luton Plunder, hello, Luton Plunder, how's it going? They asked me if I played Matthias Kramer's Weimar game at Lariacon. And I didn't. I met Matthias there, and we had a bit of a chat, and he was on my interview podcast. And I do have to apologize that some of that was affected by wind. But, you know, it is what it is. And I didn't play the Weimar game. The reason I didn't play the Weimar game is because it's an out-and-out war game, and I'm not au fait with it. So I'm sure it would have been kind of a nightmare to have a beginner like me play it. And secondly, it takes 6 hours. I was speaking to Uli Glenneman about this, and he said he was going to try and get a playtest in, and he didn't. And the problem is with getting the playtest in of something like that is you've got sort of 4 days at this place, and you want to experience everything. You want to get a load of games in. You want to have a chance to walk by the beach, you know, and have a pint at the beautiful ramshackle wooden bar that's sort of overlooking the beach and all of that. And 6 hours on a war game. I'm not sure he got many play tests in. It's a big game. But he had a few. He had Glenmore 2 there, which I didn't play either. But Ella from Ella Loves Board Games played it and said it was great. But there were lots of great prototypes there. Isaac Childress of Gloomhaven fame had his new game there. And he said, I don't know if this is speaking out of turn, but he said he was going to pitch this one, not print it with Sefer Lafair himself, because it's not sort of thematically, it's parallel universes, and it's physics, and he's got a PhD in physics, so he knows more about it. This there, I assume the start player marker is a tankard of beer. Yeah, and so with the Matthias Kramer Weimar game, I didn't play it. 6 hours, probably won't, unless, you know, someone asked me very nicely. some dice and that. Look at that. They're different colours. Don't know what they do. This is the beautiful thing of unboxing videos. You don't know what any of the stuff does. There's some cubes there of different colours. I assume that is lager and that is cream because, you know, everyone likes cream in their beer. And that's Guinness or something. And then you get some free bags. And you get some cards. That's got a lady in a purple dress. Look. She's looking down. She's a bit mournful. I think maybe, you know, she's drunk too much. Or she's trying to hold it in because she's going to pukey bookie. Then that's an empty table, which is, you know, often the sight that greets me when I go drinking alone. And that is a lyre or a lute. And it's as a central function to the game. It's one gold coin, white cube arrow with a 1 in it. So that tells you a lot. That's Tavernen im tiefen Tal from Wolfgang Barsch. I'm going to play this on Tuesday, and hopefully it's amazing. And that's the thing with it's interesting when people talk about reviewing games and they sort of say bad reviews are more honest, and that's, I think that's a load of old tosh, to be honest. Honest reviews are honest, and everyone, you know, you get a game, you have to review it. You hope all of them are great, because then you get to play great games. You just hope, you know, because if they're crap, you've still got to play them a load till you can review them, and then you have to sit through crap games. But loads of games are great, so that's all right, isn't it? Okay, anything else? Oh yes, Gary King, estimable artist, has done some new t-shirts for 5 Games for Doomsday. This is the 5 Games for Doomsday collectible card game. This t-shirt here is the rabid Michael Flatley card, and you can go to teespring.com/user/5 Games for Doomsday. You can buy yourself t-shirts and stickers and pillows and all that sort of stuff. Go there. Okay, so I'm going to get on to these questions now that people sent me on the Board Game Geeks. So the first one is from the guy who did my art for my banner, which is absolutely astonishing. Quick story about that. My previous podcast, Perfect Information, he'd sort of gone back and forth with us on that on Twitter, and I'd seen that he was an artist, and he has this really nice sort of vivid comic book style. So I just wrote to him when I was starting this new show. I said, "Can you give me a quote on a piece?" And I explained to him what I wanted. And he said, "I'm going on holiday. It's winter. I'll have a look at it. I'll have a look at maybe doing it." And within like a day, he'd come up with this sketch. It's just astonishing. I mean, if you've seen the banner piece, it's just a wonderful piece of art. And I said, "I love this, but can you put a beholder in it? Because, you know, I'm a terrific nerd." And he said, "Okay, no problem." Like 45 minutes later, he came back, "What about this?" with this beautiful picture of a beholder. And that's the art that you see now. And you can get a t-shirt with the guy running away with the games if you go to the TeePublic site. And it's absolutely, he's a very talented guy. Okay, so this is Scott Radker, Drift Marlow. I'm not sure if he's working professionally as an artist or he takes commissions, but if he is, give him money. He's amazing. So he says, "I'd like to talk about game weight. I'd like to know what you think about it. I doubt it's going anywhere, but I wouldn't mind seeing a complexity rating versus depth of gameplay, something like that. Or is the term game weight too broad to be informative?" I think it's really interesting. I don't know if American or British game publishers do this. I'm not sure Schmidt have got this, but there are. Oh yes, they do. So if you look here, I don't know if you can see this, but they actually have this is a 3-pronged weight quantifier. So you have tactics, which this is rated 8 out of 10, whatever that means. Luck, which is 6 out of 10. And Schwierigkeit, which is difficulty, and that's 6 out of 10. And that sort of tells you what weight it is. Now, I am sure when you think 6 out of 10 for difficulty, for people who play a lot of games, for gamers, it isn't 6. It's going to be a lot simpler than that, I think. But what's interesting about game weight is it's how elastic a term is, and how when someone says medium, how different that can be from what your conception of it is. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and someone said that Wingspan, I think it was Sporadically Bored with Mike and Dan, actually. I think it was Dan who said Wingspan is a medium weight game. And that surprised me because it doesn't strike me as medium. Maybe light to medium, but certainly not a solid medium weight game. Something like America would be for me a solid medium weight game. And what you have to, I think the BGG thing is kind of fine, the way they do it, but I think the best way to judge is to know who you're talking to, which is really difficult, and know what they mean when they say light, when they say medium, when they say heavy. But I'm constantly surprised by games that they're simple. So I played Lisboa. I played Lisboa a few weeks ago, probably a month ago now. And I'd been dreading it because I'd never played a Vital Lacerda game before. And I was thinking, I'm in for an afternoon of this. This friend of mine, he may watch this afterwards, Steve Syrek, is big into his heavy games. He loves his splotters. He loves his Vital Lacerda game. And I played Lisboa. And I found this when I played Madeira as well, which is also vaunted as being this super heavy game. That actually wasn't that difficult. That you sort of give yourself a goal, you go for that goal. And as long as you sort of focus on that and don't get distracted by all of the noise around, it's pretty simple. And I found to play and to enjoy, to be good at is a different thing. And that's not something I aspire to at games particularly. I don't play games often enough to be good at them. But to play them, to get through them, to enjoy them, and to be able to achieve something within my own limited remit was actually not difficult. And I guess, I don't know whether fiddliness and weight is not a different thing. I think weight is a combination of grokking a game and being able to enjoy it. So I played Alone, which was a game I'd been wanting to play for a long time, and I find it almost insufferably fiddly. Insufferably fiddly. And I didn't need to feel that game was heavy. It just felt it was overly complex. So I don't think that's the thing too. And I guess know who you're talking to. And when you say to someone, is this game heavy? Know what they mean by that. But I think after all of that bollocks, the BGG thing is pretty good. They are, I guess they do it from people clicking on it, but yeah, BGG is amazing. I was speaking to a friend the other day and he doesn't back BGG. And if anyone ever watches this in the future, I'm under no illusions, there's not a lot of people watching this, but back BGG, give BGG your money. It is the center of the hobby. It is the single most important resource we have. Everybody uses it. Give them money. They're amazing. Though, you could tart up your website a bit. Barry Dublin, Badger the Brave. Cake or biscuits? Which is no question, is it? It's biscuits. The cake is fine, but the thing is, you get a slab of cake. It's a big old slab of cake, and it's just a chore to get through. And it's usually dry, and it's usually cake. Don't get me wrong, I like a slice of cake, but biscuits are possibly the acme of human achievement. We've done very many things. We've sent people to Mars, if you believe the NASA shills. We've done 100,000 splendid things. Gerard Manley Hopkins has written Binsey Poplars. I've, kissed a girl and I liked it. But when it comes down to it, the biscuit, however the biscuit bubbled up through the collective consciousness and became something, I don't know, but if ever I doubt that there is a benevolent force in the universe, I look at the humble biscuit and I think, we're truly here for a reason. So Tony Boydell, who's on the live chat, asks, why do fools fall in love? It's all to do with the fact that we have no control over our limbic system and the way it pumps out chemicals. And love is simply a chemical reaction that we have no control over. And we should treat it with the contempt it deserves. Acquire, don't love. Okay, next question comes from Brian Smith, who's Doomsday on the Board Game Geeks. And he says, what's better, British cuisine, German cuisine, or neither? So, I'm not a believer in objectivity. I think objectivity is a load of old tripe. Objectivity is for the realm of science, it's not for the realm of art, and I include that with reviews and all of that sort of stuff. But I think there are certain objective truths, and I think you can objectively say certain cuisines are better than others. Italian cuisine is objectively better than British cuisine. Thai cuisine is objectively better than British cuisine. I don't know enough about French. Japanese cuisine is objectively better. There are countries for whom cuisine is a discipline, not just a matter of filling yourself with food so you're able to go on to the next thing. That's not to say British people don't enjoy food, of course they do, but I mean, especially if you look at Italian food and you look at Japanese food, there's such a rigorousness, such a passion and such a seriousness. So I think those cuisines are just better, objectively. But I'm always surprised, and you speak to Germans about this, and they always sort of laugh behind their hands, saying, "Oh, British food." But I don't think there's much difference between the two. I think they're very similar in that it's meat with some kind of vegetables and pickled stuff. You know, they have sauerkraut with pickled onions, pickled eggs, all that sort of stuff. I prefer British food, I think, for two reasons. One, because I live in Germany, so there's a nostalgia about it. I enjoy fish and chips, and I think the Sunday roast. And I mostly don't eat meat. That's a long story. I maybe get into that at some point. I mostly don't eat meat, but I do eat meat sometimes. And the Sunday roast, I think, is probably my favorite meal, just because of what it evokes. It's not just the taste, it's what it represents, and it's about the comfort and stability of a Sunday. You know, you get up in the morning, you get the Sunday newspapers, and you read through the Sunday newspapers. You start in the sports section, you go to the arts section, and you avoid the news because it's dreadful. Then you go to the pub, and you have a couple of pints, and you play a couple of games of pool, and then you have a Sunday roast. And you go home, and you sort of digest it, and you go to the cinema in the evening. And Sunday is just the finest day when you have a routine. I kind of don't have a routine at the moment, in that, you know, the nature of my profession means weekends bleed into weeks and all of this. But yeah, the Sunday roast. But what I'm getting around to is saying I prefer British food, but it's as much of a nostalgia thing. I lived in Austria before I lived in Germany. And what I found was so surprising about Austria is how much they cook in comparison to Britain. And I think it's still the same in Germany. How the pre-packaged microwave frozen food has not sort of monopolized people's eating. And I think that's, so I think I prefer British cuisine, but I much prefer the German mode of eating, the respect they have for their food, fresh vegetables. I think, and I guess what it is an Anglo-Saxon openness to large corporations controlling everything from what we eat to what we watch. And so, and a desire for convenience. I think we need to get back to cooking more in Britain. And if you can get back to cooking more, people will be healthier. Some pressure will be taken off the NHS system, and we can all sort of walk into the future healthy together. Also more bike lanes. Emma Edwards, she said she's catching up from the start. Good to see what you look like, having heard my dulcet tones for so long. Hello, Emma. Yes, the face is disappointing. So this is Patrick Brophy, Paddy B. And this is a really interesting question that I've been thinking about since he posted it. And he says his question is, where do you stand on the separation of the art and the artist, not just in games, but in general? He gives an example. If you want a specific example, Phil Eklund, who's recently agreed to come on the show, I'll be interviewing him soon, is renowned for his controversial opinions and penned an essay defending British colonialism. Should we as punters abandon his game designs? What about the Cthulhu mythos and Lovecraft? Does the separation of time and filtering through other creatives dilute the distaste his opinions create? Now, I've been thinking about this and how to sort of illustrate it. And it's difficult. And I think you take it on a case-by-case basis. But when I was a kid, my mum and dad had divorced, years before. And when I was a kid, my dad used to pick me up and take me to my auntie's on a Sunday for Sunday dinner. And if you're talking about the Sunday roasts, my auntie cooked the best one. She was my mother. I loved my mother. She was a vibrant, beautiful woman. She was an awful cook. Whereas my auntie was astonishing, absolutely, God, astonishing. We'd have a Sunday roast, and it would be either roast beef or roast lamb. And she just had she made this gravy, which was pale in comparison to normal gravy, but it's just the most flavorful, wonderful thing in the world. And she'd always make a homemade rice pudding for afters. And if you've ever made a homemade rice pudding, when it bakes in the oven, it has a skin which is absolutely glorious. Anyway, I would go there on a Sunday, and I'd have lunch, and I was the baby of the family, and I had a cousin, my auntie's daughter. I was maybe 6 or 7, she was maybe 13 or 14. And after dinner, while the adults would sit around the fire in the scullery, which is a wonderful old word if you've never heard it before, evokes sort of memories of my auntie's house. And they would sit in the scullery and chat adult things. And me and my niece would go into the living room where there was a record player, and we'd listen to her records. But we wouldn't listen to her records, we'd listen to two. And this was Off the Wall and Thriller by Michael Jackson. And I was absolutely enamored of Michael Jackson, in love with Michael Jackson at that point. And, recently the Michael Jackson documentary has come out. And it seems to me there's no doubt as to the veracity of what the people are saying, but, who knows? Nevertheless, he was very manipulative in a very negative manner, regardless, even if you remove the sex, what he did was despicable, even though you can't. And so it made me think, does what I now know cheapen those memories? When I listened to Off the Wall, I rediscovered Off the Wall when I was then in my late 20s, and I listened to the album ferociously when I was living in Vienna, and it's absolutely astonishing. Does it cheapen those memories? Are those memories now contaminated because of what I know about that artist? Is the music bad because of it? And it's a really difficult question to answer. In principle, I think no. The art and the artist is completely separate. But also, there's a question of, are you facilitating a disgraceful person in their life? Are you allowing them to continue to be disgraceful? So I remember, for all that it matters, when I was in my teens, up until my mid-20s, I refused to watch anything with Charlton Heston in it because of his politics. Charlton Heston was a pretty disgraceful individual, but he did some films I absolutely adored. I adored Planet of the Apes, for instance, and I stolidly waited until he died before I watched Planet of the Apes again, because I didn't want to facilitate him in his actions outside of his art. But I'm sure Shakespeare was a prick. too. And if you read his plays, and he's clearly an anti-Semite, he's clearly a kind of devoted religious fanatic, probably a Catholic. He has, very entrenched ideas about what women and what men are and what is acceptable in society. Should I never read Shakespeare again? No. I think there are some people. If Hitler wrote a brilliant book, for instance, well, then I think you have to draw a line and say, no, fuck that dick, right? But Lovecraft, I mean, S.T. Yoshi, who is the foremost Lovecraft scholar in the world, is Indian. I saw an interview with him once in which he said Lovecraft would be appalled if he was alive today and saw that me, a brown-skinned man, was his foremost scholar. But Lovecraft is wonderful. The worlds he creates are so deep and enthralling and exciting that I can't dispense with his work because he was a vile man. And so it's a really difficult question. I think I lean much more towards the idea of separating the art and the artist as much as you can, but take it on a case-by-case basis. I probably will keep listening to Off the Wall, not because I admire Michael Jackson, but because those days in the living room with my older cousin will be forever indelibly imprinted on my brain and was some of the nicest times I've ever had in my life. And I won't allow the fact that the guy who made that brilliant music was a despicable human being corrupt that. So Emma Edwards on the current chat, so I'm switching between Facebook, YouTube, and Board Game Geek, because I'm fully in control of my technological chops. She asks, and I'm reading this off the cuff, so it could be a really vile question, like, how do you look so rough? But hopefully it's not that. I'll get to the end. If you haven't answered this before, as someone else who's a British immigrant in another country, where are you originally from the UK and how did you end up in Berlin? Okay, quick. I have answered this question many, many times. I'm from Worcestershire, which is basically, if you're not British, it's Birmingham, Wales, Worcestershire is in the middle. Very rural area, very conservative area, very white area, very, if you imagine kind of what the Shire is, that's kind of what Worcestershire is. Worcestershire and Shropshire, beautiful country. In a modern sort of global business dynamic way, there's not a lot there. If you're not a farmer, there's not a lot there, but it's absolutely beautiful. And the best place to grow up as a child. I had such a wonderful time roaming through fields and, scrumping apples and all of that sort of, Christ, I sound like I'm a 1920s boy's own adventure novel, but still, it was a wonderful place to grow up. And I haven't been back for a while now because my mother died a couple of years ago and she was kind of my last link to the particular place, though I've got friends there. I was speaking to a friend just the other day. But I feel like I want to go back for a visit because it's beautiful. And in any time of year, it's gorgeous too. And I remember once I went back at Christmas and it had snowed, and it doesn't snow that often. And it really looked like a chocolate box. I mean, just glorious. These rolling hills with dotted little farmhouses and this blanket of snow. It was wonderful. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the country, Worcestershire. There's just not a lot of opportunity there if you're not interested in farming or essentially working in a factory, I guess. But I went to drama school, and I came out of drama school, like a lot of people who come out of drama school, I didn't get any work. And so I sort of bummed around different parts of Britain, and I was living in Leeds, and a friend of mine who was doing his sandwich year at university in Leeds came to visit me at Christmas, and I was moaning about how much I hated Leeds, and I hated Leeds. And so then he said, come and live with me in Vienna. And the contract on the house I was living in was running out. And then one day I was jogging and I just thought, fuck it, I'm going to move to Vienna. So I did. And a month later, I was on a plane bound for Vienna. This was 2003. And I lived in Vienna for 8 years. And it was great. And then I moved because I I felt that as an actor, Vienna was sort of very parochial and kind of difficult. And so I moved to Berlin and found Berlin, there are more opportunities here. It was kind of a difficult move, though, in the fact that Vienna is gorgeous. It's a beautiful place. The architecture is amazing. The weather's great. In winter, it's cold as shit. In summer, it's boiling hot, and I really like that. And Berlin is ugly. Berlin is great in summer and a nightmare in winter. But yeah, that's how I'm in Berlin, and here I am. And Tony Budell says, Shimon. Shimon indeed, Tony. So, Charlotte Alone, that's Creve Dog. She asks, what has been your favorite Arkham Horror TCG scenario thus far, and what did you love about it? Now, I don't know, is the question to that, because I did all the scenarios in the Dunwich cycle, and I couldn't tell you one particular one because they all meld into the same story. But Arkham Horror TCG is amazing, and a lot of people complain, "Oh, it's a money sink," and all of this. This isn't true. This isn't true. I did the Dunwich scenario, and in terms of hours of play, it's maybe 25 hours of play. It is, the story it weaves is wonderful. The game is really enthralling and interesting. It's mechanically really good fun, really vigorous and rigorous. Rigorous is what I mean. It's a word I use a lot. And you're constantly watching the other player. I played it 2-player. You're constantly watching what the other player is doing. You're constantly engaged, and it tells a really good story. And if you're talking about, do we have an issue with Lovecraft, and is Lovecraft a problem in the modern day? I think what FFG have done. Now, I think I haven't played Arkham 3, but I think their Arkham games have an issue in that they focus more on the Indiana Jonesy type aspects of Lovecraft, and that's not what I admire. There are stories from him that are kind of like that, but that's not what I focus on. I like the sense of brooding horror and the sense of futility of Lovecraft, in that we live in this world in which we're absolutely insignificant. And if Azathoth wanted, it could just blink its many pitted eyes and destroy us, and it wouldn't mean a thing. The universe would just roll on. The utter insignificance of who we are as people is wonderful. And I can't remember where I was going with this, but what FFG have done is made Lovecraft sort of, I don't think the writing is as good, obviously not, but it's made Lovecraft, it's updated Lovecraft. There is representation in FFG's Lovecraft. There is this sense that FFG have taken it and they've done their own thing, and they've taken ownership of it and made it more sort of palatable for a modern age. And I think there's issues with when people call for representation, but no question in my mind that when you see people who look like you reflected in art, that helps. And so I have no issue whatsoever in games being representative of everybody. And I have no issue, but I have no issue either in the truth of a story. And if your story concerns a certain group of people from whatever sort of tranche of society, and to have people who aren't from that tranche of society in it merely to fulfill quotas, well, that's dishonest. And so I think representation is fine, and I think the human experience is also universal enough that one group of people's story can be relevant to other different people's notion of what it is to be human. And of course that's the case, because it always has been the case. And just because I can't understand the particulars, but I can understand the human impact of a person's experience in Nigeria to a person's experience in Stockholm, right? But that was just a digression. But yeah, Arkham Horror TCG is brilliant. The stories they tell, good rollicking fun. The game is great, and it is one of the few games that manages to sync that sort of mechanics and story together in a way that is engaging and doesn't feel like two separate things just being plonked on top of each other, like so many of these supposed storytelling games do. And you don't need to spend all the money in the world. You don't need to buy. I haven't bought more than one core box, for instance, and they're being, "Here, buy 7 core boxes." You don't need to. You can have a great experience with the core box and a few expansions, and I highly recommend you do. And yeah, the Dunwich thing, I really want to get onto the other ones. And what I think I'm going to do is probably recycle, sell my Dunwich thing to facilitate buying my next one. But Arkham Horror, brilliant. The Dunwich one, it's 8 scenarios, 9 scenarios, 7 scenarios, some scenarios. And it's brilliant. So what's your favorite thing about living in Germany? What's the thing you miss most about living in the UK? And that's Ben Tinney, that's penguinized on the BGGs. The thing I enjoy most about living in Germany, especially in Berlin, is the pure variety of people. If you look at my game night on a Thursday, it's representative. It skews young, but it's representative of people of all ages, all ethnicities, all backgrounds, all nationalities. People from America, people from France, people from Germany, people from Korea, people from Israel, you know. And I understand, having grown up in a rural area, how, and especially if you look at the British media, how they revel in othering people. But what living in a big city does, when you're surrounded by people of all stripes, all financial means, all ethnicities, if I'm not sure really ethnicity counts in the fact that we're all mongrels, you know, all of us come from a complete cocktail of genetic backgrounds, and we're not, the idea of being purely German or purely British is clearly fucking absurd, just from the simple history of it. But what living in a big city does, and especially Berlin, which is something of a sort of liberal paradise, is that it's very difficult to give a fuck about who people are. And I mean that in the really positive way. I think there is a danger in focusing on people's identities. And there is a danger, and I understand how you want to cling to that one facet of yourself that you feel that defines you, that gives you a sense of individuality in the world. But I think we shouldn't work towards the idealization of identity. We should work towards, frankly, not giving a shit who anyone is, who they choose to sleep with, what color their skin is, what religion they like to follow. Even that, if it were me, I think a world without religion would be a bit better. So Tim Tix, as a response to British cuisine or German cuisine, said, "I think you're supposed to ask questions," and it's true. How could ever assume German cuisine ever comes close to British cuisine? I don't know. We've got the pot noodle. So Matt Curtis, Mr. Amphibian, so he's referring to the Guild episode, and he says, "Janine survived the apocalypse too. Do you think you guys have a future in this toxic wasteland? Surely the near mass extinction of the human race has increased your chances." No, indeed, because I mean, I'm a average at best man in all aspects, especially intellectually, and I stress the at best. And so, yeah, fewer men, less competition. I'm feeling much better about that. And Alex Ansari, Sir Alex, I think he's trolling me. And this is the last question. And this is, what did you think about the Man United comeback in Paris? I loved it. And the reason I loved it is because it gives Man United fans a bit of hope. And as everyone knows, it's the hope that kills you. And what's going to be wonderful is when you're inevitably crushed by us in the semi-final, then we can laugh at the snap, crackle, and pop guy who's your manager weeping at the side of the pitch. And this hopefully will be just after you've given him a permanent contract, and you can all go, "What are we done?" And it's going to be wonderful. And for those of you who are interested in football, Man United are rubbish, Liverpool are amazing. So that's all the questions I had. So I guess what I want to know is if you come onto this later, I guess it goes up onto the, onto the YouTube channel. If you give it a watch, tell me what you think. I'm planning on making it a sort of monthly thing, but if you want more of it, I can make it a bi-weekly thing. I've actually quite enjoyed myself, surprisingly, talking alone in a room to a camera. Obviously, I would prefer it in the future if there was more sort of live questions. If anyone who's watching, if anyone is still watching, anyone wants to ask a question while I'm sort of wrapping up, I'm more than happy to answer them. Tell me what you think. Do you think this is a worthwhile thing? If I get an overwhelming amount of no, then obviously I'll take that into consideration. But and also the hope is in the future that I will get other people to guest on these streams. Anthony Boydell was watching. I don't know if he is anymore, but it would be wonderful to get him on, for instance, in the future. And also, now I know what I'm doing to a bit more. I can do sort of live events if I'm at the UK Games Expo or at Essen or something like this, and sort of completely steal the format from Paul Groban. So, Creve Dog has just joined. She says good morning or afternoon. It's afternoon. It's nearly 5 o'clock here in Berlin. You'll have to go back and watch because I've answered your question about Arkham Horror in a really rambly way. And just safe to say, TLDR, Arkham Horror is amazing. Anyone else? Any questions? Any questions? I don't want to be desperate. I can cook myself some food and I can listen to a podcast. So yeah, do you hate this? Do you love it? Do you hate me? Or are you just full of desire, having seen my gorgeous hair and bristly face?